Welcome to Magic Pill Monday, episode 17. And on today's episode, I actually want to start with a story. This dates back to about 5 years ago when I was 49 and a half. And basically, at my wife's begging, pleading, and insistence, I swallowed my pride and decided to get a lot of testing done. My hormones, my nutrient levels, and the usual blood stuff. Because we all have blind spots, and unbeknownst to me, I was kind of just running on empty. And my wife noticed it and basically just said, please, you recommend it to your clients, go get tested yourself. So, just to really honor her request, I decided to do the testing that I work with my clients to do. And it was very enlightening. And I want to share this story because I can honestly say it was a game changer for my life, my wife, my business, and my clients. Because what you don't know, you don't know. And so I got tested, and it definitely revealed some critical deficiencies. And one of those was iodine, and iodine's a building block of thyroid hormone. And in this episode, we're going to talk the basics of hormones. I want to basically cover that with you, but I want to share this personal story because it is a game changer, and I just know there's people out there that you don't know what you don't know either. And the good news of this story is getting tested and starting to manage and then optimize my hormones with sleep, with nutrients, with nutrition, with recovery, and with supplementation, and ultimately hormone optimization strategies and hormone replacement therapies. So I'm going to talk all about that. And this is going to be a 3-part series. I'm going to break the hormone replacement therapy into male and female, so that'll be a little bit more relevant. And in today's episode, I'm going to cover basically an overview of what hormones are. But I can honestly say on the other side of it, 3 to 6 months later, once I started that process and looking back, I could witness in my own self, looking at myself 6 months previous, and I was like, Matt, you were running on 2 cylinders. And since I made that decision and made those changes, I can honestly say that now I'm running on 8 to 12 cylinders. There would have been no way that I could have went through everything I went through to find and relocate our business and do this, 100,000 plus build out, grand opening with 300 plus people, 3 months of marketing, hiring and training, staff, and having energy left over for my wife and my kids. Because before that, I basically had enough energy to get 1 or 2 major things done a day. And then going home, I would have nothing left for my kids and my wife. Or I could sacrifice the business and have some energy for my wife and maybe some for my kids, or maybe give some to my kids, but not my wife. So now, for most days, in most cases, in most instances, I have energy for all of it. And that's all through going through this journey that I want to share with you, and basically start with an overview of what hormones are. And if you stick with me through this 3-part series, this is Magic Pill Monday live. It's on YouTube on a playlist there, but it's also streamed live as a mega cast on Facebook. And hopefully you're watching there, and you'll give me some feedback. So participate and let me know if you're getting some value out of this. So let's dive into what hormones are and kind of hit the big stuff. So my whole coaching operation business is based on making things simple, making them actionable, making them realistic for the rest of us. And if you want deeper dive sciences, I can certainly provide you with those resources, the people I listen to, the doctors, the scientists, the books I read. But kind of want to just give you an overview of what hormones are. They are essentially chemical messengers that coordinate different functions in the body, and they are essential for life and health. And that's why I shared that story, because when they are not optimized, you're basically running on empty. Is kind of the best way to explain that. And so far, 50 different hormones have been identified, and most of them are produced by our endocrine system, which are endocrine glands. And then there are some that are not, like melatonin and prolactin. But today I'm going to cover kind of the primary big picture hormones that you need to know about and how you can manage them and how to kind of test those. So that's all part of the management strategy. But hormones control those critical life functions like metabolism. They give us energy for life, age, sex, muscle mass, and activity, our libido, our mojo, our motivation. All these are regulated by hormones. And when they're out of balance, you're going to feel out of balance. And like I said, you may not even realize it. But also breathing, our blood flow, digestion, growth and repair of our tissues, muscles, skin, collagen, all these things are regulated by hormone. And that's what we call this process of homeostasis. And thyroid, which I'm going to talk about today, is kind of like our body's thermostat. And basically, hormones keep us alive and keep all these things regulated, like body temperature, our body fluids, our electrolytes, our blood pressure, and stuff like that. So control our growth and development, our sexual function, like I mentioned, reproduction. Without hormones, we cannot reproduce. We would not have the desire to reproduce. And that's what libido is all about. Our sleep-wake cycles are regulated by hormones. And like I said, your mood and mojo are all influenced by your hormones. So we have primary hormones and secondary hormones. The primary ones that you probably have heard about, and you may not understand what they are, but after today, hopefully you will understand a little bit, enough to be dangerous, or at least to have a conversation with your doctor. For males and females, testosterone is basically our sex function, libido, bone mass, and fat mass controlling hormone. Definitely critical for life. And estrogen, there's 3 types, 1, 2, and 3. In females, they're made in the ovaries. In males, it's converted from testosterone through aromatization and is also important in males. And this was enlightening to me. You know, estrogen is not a bad thing. It actually helps us feel good and, helps us stay emotionally balanced and helps us more patient and stuff like that. So estrogen is critical in males and females. And when I talk about the female side of hormones in part 2, you're going to learn about perimenopause and menopause and then hormone replacement therapy. There's a lot of misinformation out there. So hopefully you will tune in when that's time. Cortisol. A lot of people have heard of that as our stress hormone, our fight or flight. It is important, made in the adrenals. It is a steroid hormone. And I'm going to break that down for you today. And insulin is a non-steroidal hormone made in the pancreas. And it's basically our nutrient transporter, nutrient storage hormone, helps get nutrients into the cell. And I'm going to talk about that one today. And then our thyroid hormones, T3 and T4, your thyroid gland. So we're going to break those down in a little bit more detail, not crazy science. So just enough to be, like I said, informed. And our secondary hormones, the major ones are progesterone, pregnenolone, DHEA, melatonin, which you probably heard of as the sleep hormone. And a lot of people are taking that for sleep. And you may learn something about that through this series. And then leptin and ghrelin, which influence our appetite and satiation. So we'll dive into a little bit of explanation of those through this series. But the ones I want to break down today are basically cortisol, insulin, and thyroid. So these all can be managed and influenced by lifestyle choices. So that's kind of a critical takeaway. You don't have to see a doctor to influence these hormones. And I'm going to share with you basically some strategies on how to do that today. So stick with me. Your cortisol is made in the adrenal glands. Like I said, it's a fight or flight hormone. if you are chronically stressed or overtrained, even like you think you're doing great things in the gym, and you can make too much cortisol and reach a status called overreaching. And then there's after that overtraining. And those are not good things. And a few weeks ago, I had a guest on, Anna, and she shared her story of how working with me, training less, eating more, and eating less frequently, she was able to actually dramatically change her body composition by training less. So sometimes we're doing too much with all the things that we have on our plate, and cortisol gets out of whack to the wrong side. But the good parts of cortisol is that it is anti-inflammatory. So you probably know of or been to the doctor yourself, and you might have gotten cortisone, a shot in the knee, or a topical prescription to control some inflammation or some rash or something on your skin. That's because cortisone is anti-inflammatory, and that's one of the things it does in the body, and that's what it helps us feel good. So having no cortisol is bad. You're going to feel like crap. You're going to hurt. You have a lot of pain and aches because of the inflammation that cortisol controls. So for that reason, cortisol is good. It also regulates our blood sugar, helps release glycogen and gluconeogenesis. So if you are really depleted and really fasted, cortisol is a good thing because that's a stressor, and it's going to help release some blood sugar through gluconeogenesis by breaking down some muscle if it gets really critical, or in most cases, releasing from glycogen stores in the liver and your muscle. So think of the fight or flight response. If you walking down an alley and all of a sudden you hear this noise that you don't want, and you got that fear response and anxiety, all of a sudden you feel that shot and you're wide awake. They get that cortisol release, and basically that prepares you for fight or flight by giving you short-term energy and waking up your senses so that you can run like hell or potentially fight if you need to. So that's kind of why they call it the fight or flight hormone. It also is involved in digestion by stimulating gastric acid and helping food digest. It also controls blood volume by inhibiting sodium loss. So if it does get out of balance, and you get too much cortisol, and those of my clients that are on prescription, prednisone is a very typical one. They typically gain 10 to 15 to 20 pounds even, and kind of swell up like a marshmallow. So that is when cortisol can be a bad thing. So if your cortisol is high, you can experience rapid weight gain, high blood pressure, muscle weakness, mood swings. If it's low, fatigue, pain and inflammation, like I described, dizziness, weight loss, and low blood pressure. Alcohol, this is when we're getting into things that can influence through choices that we make every day, day in, day out. Like drinking alcohol, just understand if you're a daily drinker, you're going to overproduce cortisol or have more cortisol than, say, a non-drinker or a moderate drinker. And it can be 2 to 3 times higher. So that is why for my weight loss clients that are highly motivated, I encourage them to either become a moderate drinker or to eliminate it for a while they're accomplishing this weight loss goal. Another way that you can manage and optimize cortisol, at least from lifestyle choices, is by managing our stress. If you're chronically stressed, sleep deprived, I'm going to get into sleep in a second, that is going to influence cortisol in a negative way. So all my clients, if when we do the assessment and intake, if they are highly stressed or they have a job where they're chronically stressed or sleep deprived, like I'm about to talk about, you have to ask yourself the question, is it worth it? Because it's going to influence your cortisol and those things I already talked about. And then finally, the biggest thing that we can manage is stress and then sleep. Sleep is, sometimes we can't control our job or who we work for. And your immediate supervisor, in my opinion, and studies bear this out, has a significant influence on your overall stress and happiness levels. So that's just something to be aware of. But on the sleep side of things, when cortisol gets out of whack, it can kind of put you in this vicious cycle where at night, if your cortisol is high, you're going to have trouble sleeping because you're going to have this energy from that glycogen response that cortisol does, and it's going to be harder to sleep. And then you're going to become sleep deprived, which raises cortisol, creates that vicious cycle. So managing your sleep, even if it means getting some help from a doctor, and I'm not necessarily talking about Ambien and some of the hardcore sleep drugs. There are other ones that can more subtly put you to sleep and help you stay asleep. So that's on the prescription side of things, but there's supplements like magnesium threonate and some nighttime strategies that can help bring cortisol levels down, and then over a period of a week or two, get you into a normal sleep cycle, which will help start returning cortisol levels to normal. And then a final thing with cortisol that you can do to lower it 20 to 30% is literally, an attitude of gratitude. So a gratitude exercise in each morning, 3 to 5 minutes, where you just think of things that you're grateful for and blessed to have in your life, can literally lower your cortisol 20 to 30%. So those are some takeaways I just shared with you. And I know I went through those kind of fast. So watch this back if you need to, write them down, and start implementing those in your life. But the first one I generally recommend is a sleep routine where you brush your teeth at a certain time every night. Start that sleep routine so you get to bed at a certain time, or bring it back slowly. If you're going to bed after midnight, 12, 1, even 2 o'clock sometimes, we need to rein that in. And then that attitude of gratitude, or that practice of gratitude every day, preferably twice a day, 3 minutes in the morning, 3 minutes in the evening, is going to positively influence your cortisol level. So there's some big takeaways that you can do anytime, anywhere on your own to help manage cortisol. Next one I'm going to talk about, and I do this one's big in my Nutrition Made Simple program that's part of my health coaching. We talk about the snake eyes, insulin and inflammation. So I'm not going to talk about inflammation directly today, but I am going to dive into insulin. This is a hormone made in the pancreas. You may have heard of type 1 diabetics, where they have an autoimmune condition where their pancreas, the cells that make insulin, are attacked and eventually die and cannot produce insulin. But for the most part, we can make insulin in our pancreas, and it is our storage hormone, our things that transports nutrients into our cell. I call it the fat storage hormone because if insulin levels are high, you're going to be storing fat. When insulin levels are lower or moderate, you're going to release fat in general. So manipulating insulin through the strategies I'm going to teach you real quickly here, you can significantly influence whether you're storing fat or releasing fat and burning it. So the big takeaway is your average insulin level is correlated to all-cause mortality. And what do I mean by that? If your average insulin levels are generally high or high in a high average, then your all-cause mortality rate goes up, meaning you're going to die younger, meaning you're more likely to die from all the causes that causes death. That's all-cause mortality. And studies prove high insulin equals higher all-cause mortality. So that's something none of us wants. And when insulin's high, basically your liver and muscle cells get full, then fat cells are going to uptake the glucose and convert those into triglycerides. So insulin's high. It also inhibits fat breakdown. So how do we influence insulin? High levels are directly influenced by what we eat, and high glycemic foods, which are generally your sugars and your starches, highly processed foods are going to spike your blood sugar. And when blood sugar goes up or climbs rapidly, your body is going to secrete or over-secrete insulin. And I'm breaking this down really simply. And yes, it's more complicated than this, but in general, this is what you need to know. You spike your blood sugar through eating processed foods, carbohydrates, and sugars. You're going to raise insulin levels, and then ultimately your body becomes resistant. Those receptor sites start saying no thank you, and your body has to make more insulin and to create the same effect on those receptors. So that's insulin resistance. And eventually, if it's significant enough, then you're starting to get higher blood sugar levels because your insulin is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And then that's ultimately what leads to type 2 diabetes through insulin resistance, metabolic dysfunction, and your body just can't get rid of those glucose molecules anymore, even though it's overproducing insulin or producing it like crazy. And that's where you get prediabetes and then ultimately type 2 diabetes. And we know not just type 2 diabetes, but metabolic dysfunction to the degree of prediabetes, and that's basically 5.7 A1C up to 6.5, and then 6.5 and higher is diabetes, type 2, I'm sorry. And if you're in either of those situations, and 88% of Americans are at some level in that situation, so it's highly likely that you are on the spectrum somewhere, then you are increasing dramatically your risks for obesity, stroke, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and neuropathy, retinopathy, and even skin tags. That's a new one for you, or was for me at least. So this is all preventable or reversible with lifestyle modifications and making smart choices. But insulin resistance also has a significant effect on you. Maybe are suffering or been diagnosed or know somebody that's been diagnosed with PCOS in females. And that basically is caused by insulin resistance that affects the ovaries to upregulate testosterone production. And then you get all the symptoms of PCOS, which can influence fertility, acne, body weight, and just things that are unnecessary. So the good news is they are influenced by lifestyle choices. You're not a victim. You can be a victor by taking an active role in managing your own health and hormones. And then finally, your HbA1c or your A1c score that most doctors measure, when that goes up or is trending up, that is you're heading in the wrong direction. But here's maybe some enlightening news for you. If you go to the doctor, and I hear this all the time, oh, my doctor says my blood work's great. And I'm looking at somebody that's, 50 to 100 pounds overweight. They have all the symptoms. Their feet are swollen. Their skin is discolored. They have the skin tags. They have up and down energy, mostly down, all the symptoms of metabolic dysfunction. And that's because A1C, it has like a 10-year trailing effect of metabolic dysfunction. So it's highly likely you're metabolically dysfunctional right now. And the best way to test that is fasting insulin, not fasting glucose. So this is just one test you can do along with your triglycerides and uric acid and HDL that can reveal an ApoB metabolic dysfunction. So getting that information, but more importantly, doing something about it is you just have to realize we are in control through these lifestyle choices. So that's a quick summary of insulin. And then the last one I'm going to talk about today is thyroid. And let's blow this one up so you can even see it even more. This is our thermostat, thyroid hormone. But our thyroid gland is like the internal thermostat of our body. So if you're getting, if you're over hot or you're cold or you're shivering, this is where husbands and wives, we can be sleeping in the same environment, and one person can be sweating and hot and the other one could be freezing cold, and the temperature is the same. So this is basically due to differences in our thyroid function and how our thermostat is working. But real quickly, you have thyroid stimulating hormone, which basically tells the thyroid gland to make T4. T4 is converted to T3, which is the active form of the hormone. And it's just a small amount of the T4 that is converted. And if you are getting thyroid tests, if you don't get your reverse T3 and all three of those tested plus your reverse T3, you don't really have a whole picture. So reverse T3 is basically also converted, and if competes for the receptor sites with T3. So you could have a normal T3 level, but if your reverse T3 is high, that T3 isn't acting on those receptor sites because they're competing with reverse T3. So it's important to know all those numbers. But assuming things are working right, the T3 is going to act to increase your energy burn, your metabolism, and acting on those cells and your mitochondria to basically rev things up or slow things down. So if you diet and you're doing a crash diet and I'm going to eat 500 calories a day, or dramatically try to cut weight, eventually your thermostat adjusts to what you're doing. And it's going to downregulate your metabolism and offset the calories that you're not eating. So this is where it becomes self-defeating. It's just something to be aware of, and why you should work with a coach if you are trying to lose weight, or a weight loss doctor that knows what they're doing and not just prescribing pills. So outside of that, thyroid function also controls body temperature, heart rate, metabolism, like I said, digestive, and calorie burning. So symptoms of low thyroid, you're tired, you don't have energy, thinning hair or hair loss, goiters, you can start getting a lump right here, erratic menses or periods is not on cycle, weight gain is very typical, and constipation. Now, this is where you want to work with somebody who knows what they're doing, and understanding a doctor, a functional health doctor, or an endocrinologist that has experience. You got to ask. But and this is why, because symptoms of high thyroid can be very similar of low thyroid: erratic menses, weight gain, constipation, or weight loss, diarrhea, and erratic heartbeat. Those are just some of the symptoms of high thyroid. So you can see some of those are the same. So the doctor doesn't know what to test and really doesn't have the experience of working with patients over time. They're not potentially going to understand what's happening inside of you. And everybody is different and responds differently. So you can't just prescribe the same medication based on your blood work to somebody else that has the same numbers. You may experience very different results and how you feel in your symptoms than somebody is prescribed the same amount. So that's where hormonal optimization is very individual. So that's why you want to work with an experienced practitioner. So thyroid in our daily lives is affected by exercise in a positive way for the most part. This is where we get into the nuances of exercise. Good level of exercise is basically going to optimize thyroid in a good way. On the downside, if you do too much or you overtrain, going to the gym all the time, working out too much for how much recovery time you're doing, how much sleep you're doing, how many calories you're eating, then you can reach a status of overreaching. Your thyroid function is going to get jacked up, and it's not going to be a good thing. And like I said, shared, I would definitely go back and watch that episode. It's called Less is More, and it was all about less training, less complicated diet, and she got way better results, which is, kind of counterintuitive if you think about it. But managing your stress is another big thing that I mentioned already, because if you're under high stress, then your body's not going to make enough thyroid stimulating hormone. It's a whole feedback mechanism, and calories influence. Too many, too little are going to influence thyroid function. But here's something that, we need to all be aware of, is more exposure to environmental toxins. They're going to accumulate over time and then eventually could break down your thyroid tissue. And that's why working with somebody that knows what they're doing to see or catch this early, hopefully, or catch it at some point so you have the opportunity to do something about it. And then alcohol does have, like cortisol, a negative function on thyroid, and TSH is downregulated, and it's going to affect your thyroid function. And then sleep is critical for good thyroid function, just like it is for cortisol, just like it is for a lot of things. So this is why I say in my coaching that sleep is the foundation of what I call the pillars of health, which, are also important, but sleep affects all of them. So that's why I believe sleep is the foundation. It absolutely is critical. And the good news with sleep, it's something that's free. We can manage it, get a hold of it, and improve it. And that's going to improve our thyroid, our cortisol, how we feel, dopamine, all the good things that we want to optimize. So, those are just things that we can manage in our daily lives. So this is just part one, covered recapping, insulin, cortisol, and thyroid. But in parts 2 and 3, we're going to get into hormone replacement therapy or hormone optimization through supplementation and working with a practitioner that can help you optimize and manage those hormones through testing, evaluation, trial and error in some cases, retesting, and then basically getting you dialed in. And that is what hormone optimization is. So going back to how I started this journey with you, with the story I shared, by managing and going through that process myself and optimizing my hormones, I feel amazing. I'm able to do so much more. I'm able to serve my wife, serve my kids, serve my clients, and serve you with more energy, more motivation. Sleep great, and it's just a game changer. I'm just sharing with you, it is a game changer. So if you are discouraged, you don't feel very well, working with a coach can be, like I said, a process that can help you identify things that you can fix and do something about. So hopefully that encourages you. And if you do want to work with a coach like myself, just let me know. You can put in the comments the word coach. That's always a trigger for me to reach out, and I'll DM you and we can have a conversation. And I can share with you the program that I launched called YOLO 360. And that is basically take you on this road to health journey that is going to first identify, and I'm going to tell you what tests to get and how to work with your doctor to get those tests and your insurance company. And if you don't have insurance or you don't want to deal with your insurance, you can cash pay for a lot of these, and it's not that expensive. And there's even companies now that you can go online and they will send the test directly to your house if you just want to avoid doctors altogether. So, but working with a coach is going to guide you through that process, get the information, and then identify the areas that you can act on. For me, one was iodine. So for $7, I bought some iodine, supplemented with it. And like I said before, iodine is a precursor of thyroid. So little iodine molecules make up thyroid hormone. So by restoring my iodine levels to normal, my thyroid function tripled just by taking a $7 supplement. So, that's just one example. I know it was a game changer for me. And then optimizing all of my hormones has basically, returned me to how I felt in my 20s. And I'm almost 55 now. And just maintaining the quality of life that we all deserve, is available to all of us. So if you don't know where to start, I would love to help you. This is not a sales pitch, but if you do want to at least have a free consultation, you can put coach in the comments, or you can reach out to me in the contact information. If you're watching this on YouTube, go into the description. There's a link to my consultation form. And no matter where you are, I have clients around the United States. The coaching is virtual, and you can do some simple things to optimize your health. So that is today's episode of Magic Pill Monday. Why do I do this show? It's because I live to help people and have impact with time-starved, purpose-driven people, help them live a healthier, happier, and longer life. And the title of my book that you can see behind me over my shoulder there is The Magic Pill. And that is the subtitle, helping people live a healthier, happier, longer life. And that's the mission. That's my coaching program. So if that's of interest, put coach in the comments, but do something about your health. Don't take it for granted. Don't just sit by and let life pass you by. If you don't get engaged, you're missing out. So that's my pitch. I hope you have a great rest of your day whenever you're watching this. And tune in to part 2 and part 3 of this series. Next week will be part 2, and then the following week will be part 3, where we dive in the female specific and the male specific hormones and how to optimize those. So if you found benefit, let me know, and we'll see you next time on Magic Pill Monday. I'm Coach Matt O'Brien. TrYumph on. We'll see you.